Welcome to Aging Together, a podcast dedicated to exploring the challenges and opportunities of caring for our aging loved ones. This podcast is a product of Caregiver Consulting and Healthy Solutions, a private consulting practice dedicated to helping you navigate the aging process with ease. Together, we will dive into a wide range of topics, including health and wellness, financial planning, caregiving, and more. This podcast is for everyone, whether you are an older adult looking to age in place, a caregiver seeking support and guidance, a young or middle-aged adult planning for the future, or simply someone interested in learning more about the aging process. I hope you'll join me on this journey. Let's navigate aging together. What's up, everyone? I'm your host, Pooja, and you're listening to Aging Together. September is National Fall Prevention Awareness Month, so you already know I have to talk about it. In today's episode, I'm speaking with an aging in place certified architect about all things home safety, fall prevention, and building your forever home. Aaron is a passionate design professional, consultant, and advocate for aging in place in your own community. He has been presenting at a national and international level for over 15 years. He is a licensed architect, a certified aging in place specialist through NAHB, and an engaging and entertaining public speaker. Aaron is a known industry expert and author in the aging in place field and a business coach teaching other executives how to own the aging in place and universal design niche of a home modification business. He teaches general contractors, remodelers, occupational therapists, and associated fields what it takes to become your own local go-to expert in your community. Aaron has been a Seattle radio host on the subject and is a known entertainer and educator on stage across multiple home and building industries. Aaron is the founder of ForeverHOME and owner of ADM Architecture. Together, we're taking a dive into fall prevention and home safety. Please join me in welcoming Aaron to the show. Aaron, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to talk with you too. I gave a brief intro bio about you already, but I want to hear more about how you first got into this industry and your passion for building ForeverHOME. What inspired you to specialize in designing homes for aging adults?
Awesome question. So for me, two different light bulbs over a decade apart. The first one, I was actually at the University of Washington in architecture school in Seattle. My grandmother was 5'9", traveling the world, playing bridge, playing cards at a master's level, loving retirement and traveling and doing all of that when I went into UW. When I got out 4 years later, she was 5'2", trapped in a hospital bed and didn't know grandpa's name. So for her, it was osteoporosis and Alzheimer's. But what I noticed at 22, I don't really want to know about grandma's hygiene or bathing or anything medical. But a split-level home was broken for her. There was stairs everywhere, stairs from the car up to the main floor, another set of stairs to get to the shower, back down for the laundry. A house like that did not work for somebody with an ability change. So that was step one. My second light bulb, ironically, buying a car off Craigslist, like 10 years later, two 63-year-olds bring me a car. Whose is this? Well, it's mom. She's 92. Well, where does she live? Finally gave up the keys. She lives in the assisted living place down the road. I said, I'm doing a little homework. Do you mind if I ask? Don't answer if it's too personal. What did that cost you? $150,000 out of pocket and $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. My jaw hit the floor. So, when I talk on stages now, I say, raise your hand if you have a $10,000 mortgage. If you do, I'm adoptable. I would love to see your home. Right? We don't. And that's where I went, oh my gosh, there's a humongous housing gap when it comes to changing ability. So if we're living twice as long as we lived in 1900, shouldn't we be designing houses different?
I love that. Those are two very key pivotal moments, it seems, in your life. I can agree with the whole grandparents stories. You know, I was raised by 4 grandparents. And so just watching them get older and seeing how they navigate everything, that really led me to wanting to work with older adults a lot more as well.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about your relationship with occupational therapists, kind of how their practice and aging in place architects kind of work together? I know you mentioned that you frequently work together with OTs, PTs, and whole gamut of professionals. Kind of how does that play into your role and your work?
Yeah, we try to. And obviously, becoming a spokesperson or wanting to publicly educate, like you and I are doing today, requires that I look for collaboration opportunities. And let me give you a real world example. So if you go to the bank and you're in a wheelchair, you can still go to the bathroom there. That doesn't exist for housing, right? Now I can go to a book and know where to put blocking behind a wall to put a grab bar in according to the ADA as of 1990, which was a fantastic first start to the rights of all. But I can't tell you if you're left side strong, right side strong. Did you have Parkinson's in your family? Are you shuffling your feet? Women tend to be stronger in the legs. Men tend to be stronger in the upper body. That's the OT, right? That's what I need an occupational therapist to do when we're doing home assessment or when we're designing a house that considers everything that you might need to the best of our ability at the time. When you're planning ahead, 70% of what I design really falls into the term universal design. Just better for everybody. Better for the 4-year-old, better for the 84-year-old. But the rest of what I do, and in architecture, I refer to this, I think it's a book I read in college called Problem Seeking. And by asking enough questions, peeling the onion, getting to real truths, including your dreams and your fears, well, now we know who you need on the team and how we can put more brains for a more better solution together at the table.
Absolutely. What are some key myths and facts related to homes and fall prevention? I'm thinking about sometimes people feel that when we make functional or safety recommendations that it's going to ruin the aesthetics of their home, right? It's no longer the home that they so beautifully designed, and they feel that they have to compromise with that in order to make it safer. So can you give me some insight into more of how you approach that or what you kind of feel are myths versus facts?
For sure, yeah. And then I'll also have an anecdotal story for this as well.
Perfect.
So, good design disappears. Okay, that's step one, right? If it's done right, you don't notice, you just notice it works. Let me give you a couple examples. I learned from a gentleman that runs a laboratory in St. Louis that glare is 90% worse or 200 times worse on a 90-year-old than it is on a 20-year-old. That's why people start to get scared of driving at dusk. White vertical surfaces cause vertigo in Alzheimer's patients. Are your walls white? Right? Things to think about. But to answer your question more directly, we can use color and light and material transitions to tell your brain about safety without needing yellow bumps on the floor and red stripes on your countertop, right? We're not turning homes into hospitals. We're not. And my example actually is my folks. My mom tripped and fell coming up the 3 or 4 stairs into the laundry room from the garage and got hurt. And so we have a great humorous relationship that I said, Mom, I'm not bringing you the grandkids to Thanksgiving unless you take a picture of a grab bar and a drill driver that I can put on the wall next to those stairs. Now, she did. Brought the kids for Thanksgiving. Wednesday night of the 4-day weekend, I installed the bar next to the stairs. The next morning, it's my dad, who rides his bike 30 miles a week, who comes in from taking out the recycling and had trotted down the stairs and swung around the corner by grabbing the bar. And he came in and he goes, man, that's really nice. We should have done that a long time ago. Well, as a child in this space, I'm banging my head against the wall going, I've told you this for years, right? but that's the parent-child psychology. That's a whole other challenge for sure.
They're not going to do it until there's a need for it.
But he didn't know he needed it until he had it and used it and loved it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my pitch for trust us. Go ahead and plan ahead and let's see how it works. You're going to love it.
That's fantastic. I feel like grab bars are such a go-to object or piece of equipment that is frequently recommended, and people generally know what we're talking about, but they're also very much the first thing that's like a sight for sore eyes in most people, right? They're like, that doesn't look pretty over there.
Yeah.
Well, we can make it look pretty. What color do you want it?
Yeah. And the color can be, a signal too. But in that scenario, and there's tons of other products that can do amazing things. They can make a zero threshold shower. We've designed roof trusses that can carry a person from a bed to a shower in a gurney system. Okay. We've done all of that. And it doesn't even have to be about aging. I've redesigned a garage into an apartment for a child with Rett syndrome who was 4 years old at the time. But mom wanted them to be able to live independently at 18 on site, because that's going to be a requirement, but feel completely independent in their space. So we've all had an injury. We've all had something. I've had 2 shoulder surgeries. I've torn my Achilles. When you're in that space, you do recognize how a spec home didn't even think about you. And that's really what we're trying to educate, is that we need to change how we design because our longevity has changed through medical and technological advance in a way never true in history.
Definitely.
To the grab bar comment, I would say, though, I have to get into the psychology of the cost of if not. Okay? So could you consider in your own private bathroom that nobody else uses, that if I do these 3 or 5 or 6 things, it could save you the fall? And I get this phone call twice a month at my architecture firm. Mom fell, broke her hip. She has surgery tomorrow. She's got 6 weeks of PT. Then she'll be home. Here's what I need. I can put lipstick on a pig. I can put Band-Aids on a gaping wound. Right? That's all I have time for in that scenario. And that's why I push so hard to plan ahead. When you think about the cost of the fall and the EMT and the hospital and the rehab or maybe not coming home because the house does not work for you. Now, when you think about that, and now your uncle's going to pick your housing based on some internet search from Pittsburgh, that's not freedom, autonomy, and independence of choice.
Right.
Now, would you consider a grab bar? When you look at the alternative.
Yeah, it's really a cost-benefit analysis, right? And I love that you've phrased it that way. It's what's the cost of if not? And it's really trying to sell people on that, I find, because, what we're proposing is proactive measures. And what humans are conditioned to is reactive measures. And so it's really trying to figure out what gets people to understand the proactive side and what the cost of not being proactive can be.
Right. Yep. And none of us makes good decisions when we're backpedaling. And you are backpedaling after a family fall, for example, right? And you could be backpedaling emotionally. You could be backpedaling financially. When you are on your heels, you do not make the best decisions. That's true brain science.
They might also just be uninformed or ill-informed, right? Because you haven't had the time to do the research during a moment of crisis. You're trusting your gut to make a split-second decision without all the information that you could possibly have.
Right. I mean, given the choice of would I like to go at this as a researcher or would I like to go at this in fight or flight mode? You know the answer to that.
Yep.
I've even written a blog called I'll never be a statistic until I am. That's the point, right? We don't tend to believe that will become me until it is.
Yeah, absolutely. When we're talking about some of these common problems with falls and home safety. What are some of the most common areas that you feel you address when you're thinking about fall prevention and home safety? Like, how do you incorporate some of those universal design principles that you spoke about in relation to accessibility or usability for a wide range of individuals? Kind of like you mentioned, okay, mom has osteoporosis and dementia, but dad has Parkinson's. How are we going to work on this together to then now create a home that is safe for both of them?
Right. Yeah. So again, 70% I would term universal design, 30% I want that occupational therapist, or I want to talk to the doctor. I also want to talk to your financial planner. I mean, there are pivot points that all corners are intersecting, and there's no push without a pull, right? So we do need the big picture. When it comes to the home itself, whether we're designing your last house, cool part about an architecture firm, nobody really calls you till after 40 because they bought a spec house, first and second. That's what they sell, right? And so I can say to you, any chance this huge investment you're about to make that you'll live here in 30 years? They say yes. Great. Well, then you're going to be 70 in this home. Let's talk about aging in place. Okay. So that's where we get into some of your basic answers are wider hallways, wider doorways, thinking about turning radiuses and mobility devices that may come into play in the future. Now, again, at the R&D level, I mean, there's a spoon out there that will shake counterintuitively to the shaking of your Parkinson's, and you can eat cereal with a spoon with milk. And that's my example of working in silos. But do you know who's going to play quarterback and concierge and bring this whole thing together? That's what we're trying to do at Forever Home. Now, beyond, I'd argue kind of in the order of priority. I mentioned hallways and doors. Most falls happen in the bathroom. That's really where I want to look for extra space if we're modifying a home. The cool part about an empty nester, and I say this all the time, look, you and I both know bedroom 3 is for the grandkids, bedroom 4 is collecting Christmas presents for them, and a vacuum cleaner. Okay. Right? So these houses that we empty nest out of have space to reimagine you living there forever. And that can include an elevator. If I talk to you about spending 50 grand on an elevator or 50 grand on 5 months in assisted living, you'll stay in the conversation with me.
What are some of the most common or highly recommended recommendations or design principles that you're seeing out there right now? Like, what's in the market?
Yeah, there's a huge rise in the zero threshold shower, right? Creating more of a wet room European concept without a curb, just because that's one of those places, right? If your feet aren't working right, that's a trip and fall waiting to happen. Sometimes we can do double wall construction if we want sound privacy because a pocket door goes into a cavity. Now, they're working on it. I'm not a huge fan of the finger pulls. That can be weird as dexterity and hand strength changes. But what I do like about a pocket door, most falls do happen in the bathroom. And I learned that 2'6" wide door that always swings in to a 5x8 standard spec house bathroom, when you fall, you're blocking the door. That costs the EMT 90 seconds to get the door off when he's trying to save your life. Mm-hmm. Would you consider making that easier on him? Most people would. But bathroom is where you're going to start. Touchless faucets or faucets that are levers, not knobs, light switches that are paddles, not the finger grab. Even the height of switches and outlets matters. If you think about being of a different ability, wouldn't matter if you're a little person, wouldn't matter if you're a kid, wouldn't matter if you're shrinking like I already am at 49. So our dimensions change when our body changes. And so what we need and where we need it has to go with that.
What are some of the common challenges you face when you're designing for aging adults, and how do you overcome them?
I think the biggest challenge, quite honestly, is the psychology of acceptance, right? They come to me as an architect. They know that I have sound advice from experience and licensure. And they probably know that I have a fiduciary responsibility to give them the best advice I know how. I've stepped out of a conversation with some 70-year-old parents to talk to the adult children and say, I don't need this project as an architecture firm. You need to have them move. They are hoarding and they're never going to, they can't see it. Okay, so I'll talk myself out of a job if it's the right thing to do.
Right.
But beyond that, the psychology really is about being an active listener, being empathetic. And then if you're in sales in any way, if you own a business, you only sell two things: making a dream come true or making a pain avoided. I mean, if you're not aware of that, please stop selling stuff. Okay, beyond that, no one's listening, right? What's in it for me? You have to explain it in a way of what's in it for them. Another great example, right? My parents don't want to talk about getting older, so I don't talk to my mom about aging in place. I talk to my mom about visitability in the terminology of equitable and inclusive. If I can say, Mom, your sister Jane's using a cane, do you not want her to be able to come in to your house through the front door and use a bathroom, which means she can stay longer? So it really becomes about active listening, empathetic hearing and talking, and helping them visualize the dream of what could be. And sometimes you have to use a little bit of the fear of what could happen if you don't. But that's always a fluid sales discussion, right? But if I'm not listening and you don't feel like I'm hearing you, we're done talking. I'll never even get to the sale.
Yeah. The art is in truly trying to figure out what matters to them, right? Like you said, in your mom's case, what matters to her is that her loved ones can visit her. And so that's the approach you're going to use, right?
Exactly right.
Do you, with the push for, a lot of sustainability measures, modern tech, smart homes, all that kind of stuff, do you incorporate sustainability and energy efficient features into these designs? How do these work with somebody who might have dementia, especially with like the modern day smart home technology that is now pretty rampant across new home constructions, I feel?
Yeah. So ForeverHOME is actually working on building those vendor relationships with like Josh AI, folks with Auto Slide, making their goal, their mission statement is that the standard in a home is that all doors open themselves. Okay. And they're not talking about aging. They're not, right? They just want that to be their disruption of the industry. Tech varies, obviously, by the person. I was paid to go to the International Home Health Expo in Tokyo and do a TV show about aging in place. I actually got to go into Toto's R&D department, and they put me in an age suit, and they gave me yellow glasses, and they muffled my ears, and they put straps and weights on me that I couldn't lift my arms above my shoulders. What they wanted you to do is go test their equipment if your body was of a different ability. And it was hard. I don't even know how much good TV footage they got out of it. I was sweating my butt off. It was really hard work. But the point to that is that there's so many variables. There's sinks that raise and lower. Okay, with a flip of a switch on the wall. We're getting there. We're getting there on an individual product basis. So to answer your question about tech and green, we always recommend products that our theory, at least from our own research, is they last a lot longer, right? I would rather use a cementitious product on the outside of your house for siding because I don't want you to have to paint it every 3 years, right? Or stain your deck, or the things we used to use with wood product, right? I do like the idea of insulating your home above base code value, because when you start moving into a fixed income, then expenses really start to matter, right? And so I want to think about your heating bill, and I want you to, if you can afford to, spend more on your HVAC system or your, heat pump, and so that we're not fighting that on a monthly bill basis. So yeah, it all matters to our longevity, both financial and our happiness.
When you mentioned the income and monthly bills, all I see is dollar signs when we're thinking about all of these modifications and changes and introducing tech and all of that. Some of these aging in place modifications can be very costly sometimes. And so how do you balance the need to give them what is recommended or ideal for their needs while also being cognizant of the budgetary constraints?
Yeah, so I think I've learned this well over 27 years of architecture, that my world works in a triangle, and the three corners are scope, time, and money. Everybody brings me scope. They know what they want done. I have to ask you to talk about, when do you want the keys? When do you want this whole thing completed? And what's your budget? And there's usually two budget numbers. One is, I'm slightly uncomfortable, but it still makes sense. And the other is, Aaron, go away. You don't know what you're talking about, right? So you're always looking, and again, active listening, you're looking for that balance. But my recommendations are different, right? Pooja, if you come to me and say, I have $5 million and I want 5,000 square feet, I'll say, great, we'll be done tomorrow. But if you want 5,000 square feet and you have $5, I'm going to say, cool, I hope you measure time with a sundial and own a tool belt.
Right.
There's no way they don't push and pull. And then again, back to the question of the cost of if not. When I start talking about you wanting to age in place, which close to 90% of AARP polled people do, when I say, then we need to talk about X, Y, and Z to make sure that your end game goal is this home to the best of your ability until it's no longer safe to do so. We're needing to talk about all three corners of the triangle so that I can give you my best advice about your happiness, your freedom, your independence, and your autonomy. I'm fully aware you want to stay where your pet is, where your neighbors are, your sense of community, the memories you grew up with, your garden. I get it. That's the story behind the 89% or whatever the last poll was.
Right.
They're all that high. And that's the why. So when I start talking about your why, either in the terms of making your dream come true or avoiding the pain of if not, the denial cost, then we're going to stay in a conversation until I have all three corners of that triangle figured out so that I can give you the best advice. Like I said, I'll talk myself out of a job if you don't have the money to make a difference. But it's a conversation we stay in until we have the real answer.
Right. I find that not sometimes, actually, many times people will ask so within at least OT, PT, when we make some recommendations, certain home, like low tech options or equipment can be covered under insurance. And I always mention that, medical insurance only covers so much. It will not cover the structural changes that you need to make all the time. Yes, it might cover a ramp. It might cover a stair lift. It might cover, of course, grab bars and stuff. But when it comes to actually redesigning a home, you're not going to find a lot of options from medical insurance.
Right.
But there are programs like home waiver programs. There are funding programs, rebuilding. I think there's organizations that support people with lower financial statuses in helping build them safer homes. And so what is your experience with that, or what are your thoughts on any recommendations from that perspective?
Yeah, not to overgeneralize, but I think I'd put them in three categories, right? One is we need assistance to do anything to up to, let's say it's up to 30 grand. I'll just make up a number. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Always I recommend that you go to your local housing authority and find out, in our area, we have a group of guys called Bluebirds, and they do, ramps for vets, right? So there's a lot of great programs that a lot of people don't know about, because guess what? Those programs don't have the budget to be marketing.
Right.
They're just doing good. Okay. The next level, I think, would be probably financing. right? And then we'd talk about a home equity line of credit or offer, recommendations to referral for reverse mortgage if that's a good fit for you. And it all depends on what your goals are, quite honestly, as to how you'd like to fund it. I explain to people that $150,000 home equity line of credit, cool part about boomers, two things. Number one, they've made and inherited more money than anybody in the history of the world. Their FICO scores are reasonably good as a national average. And so they have lendability. $150,000 at 7% on a FICO is $750 a month, or not on a FICO, sorry, on a HELOC. $750 a month is a lot better than $10,000 a month for assisted living. I have to give you the relativity to have it feel like it is a sensical decision. Well, for 150 grand, we can look at an elevator. We can look at a full master bathroom and kitchen remodel, right? And then what if you stayed home? There's a break-even number in my head, and I've given this presentation to financial planners. If I can keep you home 12 and a half years longer compared to that fall and hospital assisted living, I saved you $500,000 in retirement. Does your financial planner tell you that aging in place has that potential? So a lot of that. And then there's also the third category. I said they go in three. And the third category, the people have the money and they probably do the smart home stuff and they do the solar panels and that's where you can get into a little more tech when the budget says so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think involving the financial planner is a huge step of, getting buy-in from potential people, clients, consumers, whatever we want to call them. And it's something that I've worked on with our financial planner, to help kind of see how I can be of assistance from an OT lens in helping maybe them explain certain situations to their clients when they're trying to help their clients go through or recommend some of the stuff. Like you said, let's outweigh the cost benefit analysis of being in an assisted living facility or a skilled nursing facility that Medicare is not going to cover with remodeling your home to age in place. Right.
Yeah, right. And actually, I would guess, I don't have the stat, but between 50 and 80, probably your two most trusted professionals, maybe three, include your primary physician. The other two are probably the person that deals with your finances and a lawyer, right? If you have elder, estate law, right? We all have alphabet soup. We all have professional licenses. Right. But generally, a lawyer, a doctor, and then probably a financial planner from the socio-accepted clout perspective are above you and me, unfortunately. But that's the point, right? Is that we're talking team.
Right. It's a collaborative approach, and that's the best way to address all of this, I think, especially to get max buy-in from people, right? We want to target all the angles, have answers for all the questions and pushback that we might encounter. And the best way to do that is to have a full team approach.
Right. Yeah. And I just believe it. Our architecture tagline is listening, solving, creating architecture without the ego. I do believe that more team members is better solution. Prove me wrong. I don't know how that couldn't be the case. And so I do think that makes us unique, that if I can't have a beer with you, I probably don't want to work with you anyway. And so there's just that level of trust, credibility, rapport that I don't know everything. I have a father-in-law right now that's asking us 1,000,001 questions about LLCs and estate, and he's 82, and we've been asking him to do this for 8 years. Never mind that point, but right, and even the fact that I recommended an attorney that wrote a book on this, well, that was your idea, so that's no good. But at least he finally found one, and now they're having Zoom conversations with the adult children. If you don't have a plan, and I guess this is to the 70 plus listening to this, if there are any, if you don't have a plan, then I don't have a plan, right? And his biggest fear is that the two kids fight when he's dead. Okay, Dad, the way to make that come true, don't write anything down.
Yep.
We don't care what it is. You could tell us to donate all your money to Africa. We don't even care. We just want to know what to do. Please give us a path before you can't.
Right. We had a similar story in our family as well. And it all comes down to just write it down so we don't have to figure it out. You know, tell us what you want us to do and we'll do it. We don't care.
Yep.
Now that we've talked through all of, the ups and downs and important pieces of what goes into aging in place and building your forever home, could you share a success story when your design or architecture significantly improved somebody's quality of life?
Yeah, absolutely. I live in Western Washington outside of Seattle, and there's a couple that came to me from Gig Harbor, 45 minutes away. They had a second home in this desirable waterfront community. It's just a little, 1,800 square foot rambler, which was going to work great for them. They were both 62. We kind of talked about what they'd needed to do to their house. We started that design for them, and then mom needed to move out of where she was living. She could no longer be independent. And we actually designed an addition for somebody with dementia and her partner, and they both moved in. They had their own single beds, and there was a 0 threshold bathroom that worked. And we actually worked with some security companies to kind of flip the locks around, because she doesn't really know in the dementia stage she had gotten to that. So she thinks she's in this apartment, right? And we can go in, but she can't get out without notifications. And she even has her own private deck, but the latch is on my side, right? So there's some security things that we can do. And there's monitoring too, right? I mean, we're not really doing the pendant with the button on your neck anymore, right? That was a long time ago, but there are subtle ways to be notified of things. I know Lively has a key fob program, and it's on the door to the garage, it's on the pillbox, and it's on the fridge. So you just get notifications on your phone that dad's moving around doing his daily shtick, right? And that's good enough, right? No cameras, because dad's got a thing about Big Brother, right? We all have where's that threshold of yes versus nope, not willing to do it. So designing something that allowed her mom to move on site and for everybody to know that she was safe, but she felt completely independent in her own space. Huge success. And that's why I do this, because we get to make dreams come true. We really do, right?
Yeah.
It's not always the dream of the 80-year-old, but if you put the family in the whole, it really is the dream of keeping family together, keeping family safe, and keeping the people that want independence independent.
Right. Absolutely. I couldn't have put that better myself. Are there any resources, guidelines, or tools that you recommend for individuals who are interested in learning more about aging in place design or finding professionals to help them create their forever home?
Sure. I mean, I have to sort of mention the company ForeverHOME that we built. So, at ForeverHOME-US.com. And we really are trying to build out the largest national database of stock house plans for aging in place. There isn't one. Okay. And with that will come a vendor's list of service providers just like yourself, right? Joining our team so that we have that referral network nationally, not just in the Tri-County area where I am known for this. But as far as starting to learn, if you're just going to, go to Google, AARP is a great place. They have what's called a home fit guide, really smart checklist that'll get you started thinking, and they kind of own that space at a national level for all people 50 plus. I'm sure I'll start getting their mail here soon. So yeah, that's a great place to start. And there's dozens of others. I mean, you can just get a hold of me through ForeverHOME and ask that question, and we point you in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that we we've tried to do in past episodes is just give people a Google term. We talked about how being in the industry, we know what we're searching for. So it's easy for us to pull up Google and type it in and be like, okay, here's a list of people and resources in your area. Yeah. But for those listening to us who are not in the industry, it's like they don't know what to look for, right? They might know how to use Google, but they don't know what to search for.
Sure.
So
yeah, there's one more. Yeah, good point. Look up your local area agency on aging. Okay. That's the terminology that might help you with actual local resources, whether it's transportation or food delivery and sometimes you'll find that your county has a plan around that as well. And then in their document, you would also find some of the resources for housing and food and in-home care or, mobile medical, some of that stuff. So yeah, that's a good point. I would also suggest that locally.
Yeah, absolutely. The area agencies on aging are an excellent resource guide for most people across the country. Well, before we close out, what is one takeaway you'd like the audience to consider as it relates to fall prevention, long-term care planning, home safety, either finding or building your forever home?
Somebody goes to the hospital every 11 minutes because of a fall. That's what the ER statistics show. So I think my takeaway would be, don't be the person that says I'm not a statistic until I am one. Because all the stats are already there that eventually we will all, I'm not pointing my finger at anybody, we will all be one of those. All you have to do is go back in time and try to remember a place where you had some different ability for some period of time. Like I mentioned, shoulder surgery for me, right? Knowing that you want to stay in your dream of staying home, be willing to start these conversations with the people that you love and reach out to the resources that you have. And I'm one, Pooja's one, right? I mean, that's why we're doing this, is to educate the public at a national level. You can get on our website and order our book. I wrote a book on aging in place. It's not a room by room solution. It's a get the conversation started.
That's excellent. Erin, thank you so much for joining me today in this discussion. This is stuff that's near and dear to clearly both of our hearts and, in trying to help our communities age well, safely, and gracefully in the homes that they want to age in. And so thank you so much for joining me in this important conversation today.
Absolutely. Blessing to be here. And I appreciate the work you're doing to educate the public.
Thank you. To all my listeners, thank you for tuning into this week's episode on home safety, fall prevention, and many things to consider when building your forever home. Sharing expert perspectives on various age-related topics and services can help the community learn how to plan for a healthier future. At Caregiver Consulting and Healthy Solutions, we are dedicated to helping you navigate aging together. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.